Pete Buttigieg drops out of the race. Is it now time for the front runners to think about choosing their running mates? What does this mean to the race for the Democrats? We're going to take a look at that today on The True Middle. I am your host, Paul Melikivi. This is where we talk about politics, business, and faith from a real perspective. So, guys, big things happening. Tom Steyer, Pete Buttigieg dropping out of the race. This really changes the game for the Democratic candidates. We're going to take a look at all of these past candidates that have dropped out. This is opening up the field, is making things very interesting. So if you take a look over here, what we have, some of these high-profile candidates that have dropped out of the race already. We have Julian Castro dropped out, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Andrew Yang, Pete Buttigieg. These are five of the real diverse candidates that were in this race when it began. Got everybody excited. There was youth, there was diversity, and then as the field began to narrow, we're left with a bunch of old white people like we usually are. So would it benefit the candidates to go and choose some of these diverse candidates for the running mates? Well, let's take a look at what we have left in the field. These are your front runners. These are the people that are left in the race right now. We have Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders, Michael Bloomberg, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren. These are the five candidates that are left for the Democrats. As you can see, the field has really narrowed down. And to be honest with you guys, I mean, let's face it, Klobuchar, Warren, their days are numbered. So really, what it boils down to is the three old white guys. Again, three old white guys. You can call it the grumpy old men. You have Mike Bloomberg, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. That's what we're left with, guys. These are the three candidates. Bernie Sanders is still the presumptive front runner, even though Joe Biden had a huge showing of support in the South Carolina primary, coming in first with a decisive victory. So that brought him back to life. Mike Bloomberg still hasn't been on the ballot, but Super Tuesday is coming up. This is going to be his first foray into it, regardless of whether he does well or not. We know that he has the bankroll to continue his campaign. So these are your three front runners. Each of these present some unique opportunities, some unique ideas. We're going to dive into a little bit about what it may look like if these three are going to look for vice presidential running mate, what it's going to do for their campaign and their supporters, how they can gather some support. So if you look at the people that are potential candidates for vice president, right? You have Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Andrew Yang, Amy Klobuchar, and Julian Castro. These are the five that I really consider those that are actually in a position to become vice president. Now, you know, it is possible that one of these three choose somebody that wasn't a candidate, that they go out and they just choose somebody from the Senate, choose somebody totally different. But I think that there was an electorate that excited the base. A lot of people were excited about the diversity. These already have some grassroots. They have a lot of supporters. And so if you were able to capture their support and add that to your campaign, I think that's going to do wonders for a lot of these remaining candidates. So let's take a look a little bit further as to what this might look like. So you have Michael Bloomberg, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, right? So those top three, those are your leading candidates. Those that I think are the ones that may have potential to take it to the finish. So I think it's really going to come down to those three. Super Tuesday may eliminate Mike Bloomberg, but I think the other two, Sanders and Biden, they're definitely going to be in it. They're going to be your top two candidates. So when you look at it, on the bottom there, you see these are the six people that you have as possible selections for vice president. Let's take a look at each of these candidates and kind of walk through what they may need. So Michael Bloomberg, rich billionaire, he's getting a lot of slack on his policies on stop and frisk. There's a lot of questions about his support with minorities. Joe Biden is clearly the leader in the minority support, but the concern there is that he's old. And that they don't really know what type of lifespan he's going to have. Is he even going to last the 4 years as president? He's a more moderate lane, so I think, you know, it would be in his best interest to kind of look at somebody maybe from the younger side, somebody from a generation younger than him, so there's some confidence in it. He's getting some fresh perspective, some young ideas to bring into his campaign that may energize the younger demographic that he's missing out on. And then you have Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders is weird because he does have a lot of the young supporters. Out of all the candidates, he probably has most supporters on the under 30 age spectrum. And he has some minority support, not as much as Joe Biden, but he proved in Nevada that he does have the capability to excite a young demographic, a younger voter pool. So what you'll see here is that as they're looking for people in the running mates, then there's potential for them to choose somebody that is going to appeal to that audience that he's missing out on. So there's a couple scenarios that I look at. And when I'm thinking in my mind, what each of these candidates need, what each of these potential vice president running mates will bring to the table, there's a lot of interesting ways that we could look at this. So take a look here. We have Michael Bloomberg. I think there are three potential choices for Michael Bloomberg. You can have him go with Andrew Yang, who's going to bring a young demographic. He has a grassroots following. He has a lot of people that believe in him. His universal basic income is very popular. I think Michael Bloomberg is somebody that might be able to support that, being in the environment that he's in, being an entrepreneur that he is. I think he also understands the threat of automation to the jobs. As a business person, he's able to really see the impact that that's going to have on the economy. Now, his other options could be Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris will bring a lot of things to the table because, number one, she's a minority. So she's really going to help him bring up some support with the minorities. She has a lot of respect in that. And then her background in California is really going to help him with some of those more controversial social justice type of policies. So I think that she'll be able to level the playing field a lot and bring that social justice. And then Julian Castro has a lot of credentials when it comes to immigration. And I think Michael Bloomberg, again, is kind of lacking in his immigration policies just because of a lot of the slack he's gotten over some of his controversial policies. Joe Biden, on the other hand, again, we have Andrew Yang could be a great running candidate for Joe Biden. Number one, Andrew Yang has a youth vote. He's very youthful. He has a good following. It would be a good mix with Joe Biden. I think also that Joe Biden is not opposed to universal basic income. It's not what his main platform is, but I think with the introduction of Yang and actually pushing that platform, then it will really add some conversation and really put Yang in a position 4 years down the road to bring this up when the rest of the society is a little bit more ready for that type of program and that type of policy. You can also choose Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is going to help solidify a lot of his support with, the minority community, as that youth that he needs to his campaign, somebody who's young, somebody that has that Senate experience, and is definitely going to help him with the women on the ticket. And then his third choice would be Buttigieg. Now, Buttigieg is going to add that youth, right? So they were a little at odds during the debates, but you can see that Buttigieg never really attacked Biden so much as he attacked Sanders and Bloomberg. So I think that Buttigieg is going to add a nice level playing field to Biden. It's going to help balance out that age concerns. Buttigieg was really good at the debates. He was very forceful with a lot of his responses. So I think the contrast in seeing him going up against Mike Pence as the vice president in those debates could be very, very powerful because they get a lot of discussion about their Christian beliefs. I think that he's the one that would be able to really question him on some of his policies and the way that he's supporting Donald Trump on some of his policies that don't necessarily fall in line with his Christian beliefs. So I think the dynamics there between him and Pence could be really exciting, could be some good TV for the debates. I think it would add a lot of credibility to Joe Biden with the younger voters and the more educated voters that he's missing out on. Now, your third option is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is real progressive, right? A lot of people are scared about Bernie Sanders because a lot of his policies are real progressive. And so their concern is by having those progressive policies, introducing socialism, that he's going to lose a lot of people in the general election. So he has a couple of options, right? Elizabeth Warren would be a natural selection for him because Warren is also very progressive. They share a lot in the policies. And so it's important that he has somebody that kind of supports him on that vision. She could solidify that. She also adds a little bit more chomps when it comes to actually explaining some of these policies and putting some actual numbers together on some of his bigger visions. But the concern there is that with two very progressive people running the ticket, then I think that's really, really going to spook a lot of the general electorate. And so I don't think she would be the top option, but she could see clearly that she would be a good fit in supporting him on that. His other choices could be Buttigieg. Again, Buttigieg is adding that youth to his campaign. So a lot of his supporters that are supporting him on the younger side can identify with Buttigieg. He's going to add a little bit of contrast with him being older. And then his other options would be Cory Booker, who would immediately be able to bring some of the more diverse audience to him, maybe be able to pull some of that away from Biden. And then Amy Klobuchar, who has just been steady. She's not going to add any drama, but she will be very good in going up against Pence and debating some of the policies with her experience that she's had in the Senate. So you have a couple of candidates in this. It's really interesting to see what they're thinking. I'm sure the pundits are going to have all kinds of ideas. They're going to run all kinds of numbers with these fancy charts and all of that, standing on the touch screens and all of that, kind of trying to predict this. And again, they could all choose somebody totally at a random, somebody that hasn't run in the race. But I think right now is the time to really look at this. You have Super Tuesday in 2 days. And however that ends, I think that you're going to see Warren and you're going to see Klobuchar drop out. There's no way that they can stay in it beyond that. The only reason for them staying in would just be, I don't know, an ego thing, really, and trying to wait for the convention to broker it. But it doesn't make sense for them to do that. We need to start whittling down the field. We need to start consolidating and showing some support for one another. So once they drop out, I think now is the time for these front runners to go ahead and start expanding their base and trying to pick up on the areas where they lack. So this is my predictions. This is where I see us going with all of this. I see Michael Bloomberg paired up with Kamala Harris. I see that because number one is going to add that youth part of it, is going to add that experience that she has in the Senate. Again, Bloomberg has a lot of experience being mayor, but he doesn't have experience in the Senate. So I think that she's going to add a little bit of confidence by having that senatorial experience. And number one, her experience, with the law, her experience as district attorney is going to really help balance off some of his poor decisions that he made on the social justice reform. So her social justice reform platform is going to be strong help for Bloomberg. Joseph Biden, I think his best way to go is with Andrew Yang. Biden doesn't have to worry about the minority support. He has a lot of minority support. He has a lot of respect from a diverse community because of the time he spent with Obama. His biggest problem is the youth. He needs somebody that can excite the youth. He needs some new ideas. He needs somebody that's more progressive with their policies, somebody that understands technology, somebody that understands the threat of automation. And I think he's open to understanding it. And I think that Yang is actually going to bring that type of experience to the ticket. It would be a great asset to Joe if he was to go out and name Yang as his candidate before Super Tuesday. I think that could do wonders for him in California, especially because Yang has a lot of support out there with the tech community. A lot of liberals out there, there's already people out there in that community have already been advocating for universal basic income. So Yang, I think, would be Biden's best chance. If he could solidify that endorsement and have him as a running mate, I think that he has a real good, clear shot becoming president because number one, is going to eliminate all of the fears that we have about him being too old. And number two, Yang doesn't have a lot of the foreign policy experience, but that's not a concern because Joe Biden is very strong in foreign policy with his relationships with leaders. His weak spot is understanding current trends, current technology, keeping up with some of this younger generation. So Yang is perfect fit to fill that void for him. And then your last guy, Bernie Sanders. I think the way he has to go with Buttigieg. I think that it was kind of contentious during the debates, but I think Buttigieg is going to help solidify a lot of the younger votes. As you can see, if you remember Iowa and New Hampshire, they were both the top two. So if they were to combine all of those electoral votes together on a ticket, I think that gives Bernie a great head start. And it really solidifies his position as a front runner. And when he gets the delegate count added to his count, it's going to be very hard for Joe Biden to step in and beat him on that. So I don't know, guys. I don't know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think about where we can go. Chime in. Let me know who you think are the front runners. Do you think Warren and Klobuchar should step up? step off? Do you think that they should drop out? Do you think that Andrew Yang would be a good candidate? Now, he's already spoken about the fact that people have already been talking to him and talking to him about, they're getting his endorsement. He said very clearly that he will endorse anybody who picks up the universal basic income platform and adds it to their campaign. So I think that he's there. He's ready. There's a lot of interest in him. I think it would be dynamic for Biden. Give me your thoughts. Do you think Bloomberg, Biden, and Sanders are going to be the top three after Tuesday? Who do you think they should choose as their vice president candidate? Is it time to do that? Should they do it now? Or do we need to look at, waiting maybe a little bit longer until it gets more narrowed down? And historically, you haven't seen them really select their vice president candidates until they've locked up the nomination. In this particular situation, because we had such a large, diverse field of people to begin with, and everybody's upset because that diverse field got narrowed down, I think it would be in their best interest to go ahead and start reaching out to these diverse candidates, bring them onto the ticket, get the Democrats re-engaged, get them excited again, get them to come out and vote, give their support. That way they can go ahead and clear it and get a clear nomination before the convention, so you don't have to worry about it being brokered, and then take that to Trump in the elections in November. So guys, I appreciate you tuning in. I'm anxious to hear your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions. Chime in on us. Join us as we follow the Super Tuesday results coming up next week. I am your host, Paul Melikivi. You are watching The True Middle, where we talk about politics, business, and faith from a real perspective. Take care.